Hi there, my name is George, and today I would like to bring you the very first episode of CCP Digest. This is Corporate and Commercial Practice, and in these episodes, starting today, we will be sharing on matters concerning the financial, the economic, and all that is going on around these two spheres in Uganda, Africa, and the world at large. Today's segment is going to be about banking, and I just want to talk about two banks. We're going to talk about two banks, and with me, alongside me, I have two colleagues, and I want them to introduce themselves. Please say hello to us.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm doing law, and I'm a law student interested in the financial system in Uganda.
Indeed.
Hello, Digesters. I'm Timothy, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. I usually call him Team Boss, and we're very happy to be here talking about banking. And the matter at hand today is actually about Pride Microfinance that actually became Pride Bank. And secondly, we're going to be talking about Post Bank that was well known as a post office in the beginning, evolved into a bank, and now is rebranding as Power Bank. And I just want us to talk about a few things concerning banking today. And my first question, or the first thing that we're going to dive into is, what does banking look like in Uganda?
Well, George, I think the banking is the base of the economic system in Uganda.
That's true.
Yes.
When you have a good banking system from different levels of the different banks, you are able to achieve a good economic system and be able to develop over the years.
That's very true.
Yes.
And I agree with that because, as you'll know, we shall go and be sharing. You understand that we have several levels of banks, and particular levels have particular capabilities. Like Timothy will tell us about the collaterals,
Yes.
the collateral systems, that is non-collateral and collateral.
Non-collateral and collateralized loans.
Yeah.
Yes.
So collateralized loans, of course, take collateral. That is when you're getting a loan from a bank. What are you leaving behind just in case you do not pay it back? And usually, the banks that have non-collateralized and collateralized loans are Tier 1 and Tier 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then the Tier 3 and Tier 4 are the ones which have only non-collateralized loans.
So, and I'm actually liking the aspect that Timothy is bringing here, the tiers.
Yes.
And we have Tier 3 and Tier 2. So Tier 3, we have an example of Pride Microfinance. Pride Microfinance was a Tier 3 financial institution, and that meant that it could not give out collateralized loans.
Yes.
But now they're able to give out these loans because they're evolving to Tier 2, right?
Yes.
So what do you what's the new name now?
Pride Bank.
Yeah.
So the new name is Pride Bank, and it's evolving from Pride Microfinance, right?
Yeah, which is
Yes.
Tier 3.
Yeah, Tier 3.
Now they are
So
Tier
What else could we know about these tiers? What other characteristics do we have, especially for Tier 1, which is the most common that we have in Uganda?
Tier 1s are the commercial banks that we know: Stanbic, Centenary, Absa, Equity. Those are the Tier 1s. Then Tier 2, we have credit institutions: Pride Bank, Brack Bank, which actually was the last Tier 3 to become a Tier 2. That was back in March 2019.
That's quite interesting.
Then we have the Tier 3, the microfinance deposit-taking institutions. Then we also have Tier 4, which is the MFIs, the microfinance institutions.
By the way, I want to just talk about a simple aspect of banking in Uganda. We've just been introduced to this whole agent banking system just a few years ago.
2017.
2017.
Yes.
Which bank was it? I don't know, it's skipping my mind.
Equity.
Equity.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Equity Bank, and I'm asking myself, what happened? What went wrong? Because right now, we have other banks at the forefront of this system, the system of agent banking, and Equity is taking the back seat at this. What could have happened to Equity Bank? What's going down with Equity?
With Equity Bank, one thing I know is the cost-income ratio is really bad.
Yeah.
It's at 95% with including provisions, which is badly off in comparison to, is it Stanbic?
Yes, it's copied.
Yes, with 50%.
Yeah.
That puts it, when it per 100 shillings, it gets 2 to 18 shillings after the expenses. So that puts it at a horrible state in terms of its cost to income ratio.
That's really, really interesting, because that's how banks make money. Banks make money from how they lend out, and they benefit from how much is paid back. So that is very sad for Equity. But nonetheless, there are other banks that are picking up and taking the front.
Actually, what you're talking about of the lending, you reminded me about the non-performing loans.
Yes.
It's really bleeding, because at the end of 2023, the non-performing loans of Equity were 364 million. As we speak, at the end of 2024, they became 216 billion.
That's crazy.
In contrast, that was multiplying by close to 600.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So I know that banks give out money, but then the risk at which they give out money should be a bit careful. And there is hope for Equity. I know that they'll always bounce back, but we just had to highlight that as of the end of last year, it was not so good.
That says something about our economy. It's an economy that's thriving off credit. But if we have banks that are not making back the money, it's very worrying. But nonetheless, we also have other banks that are moving forward. We're having the looks of Post Bank. And I really want to get into the story.
Which is now Pal Bank.
Yes.
Pal Bank Limited.
Rebranding.
And
the money has come.
Yeah. And crazy enough, it was able to achieve 1 trillion in assets.
Wow.
Over I think the last 5 years.
Yes.
That's quite interesting in number.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the minister was talking about of finance, the economy.
Yes, he was actually there when it was transitioned from Post Bank to Power Bank earlier this week.
Yes.
And one thing that I would like to talk about is the profits. The profits, as of 2019, it was 18.4 billion. Right now, as at the end of 2024, it's close to 360 billion Ugandan shillings. And one person that I would like to commend out there is Mr. Julius Kaketo. He has brought exemplary leadership. He came in 2019. He was there when actually it elevated from tier 2.
For the 1 trillion that what she talked about.
Yes, he is still the CEO. He came in 2019. In 2021, Post Bank elevated from tier 2, from a credit institution to tier 1 to commercial bank. Now it's actually looking up. Now he has been there when they have transitioned to Power Bank. Julius Kaketo has really shown us how to actually run a bank. He's giving me those vibes of Aij Boje from Nigeria, of Access Bank.
That's quite interesting. And from me to you, that's what Uganda needs in the banking system. Someone that is able to identify, but still take the risk, because you can imagine that the banks then risking to give out money, like you've seen, collateral is not being, people are not paying back on loans, and people are losing things, they're losing assets. And so that's what the banking sector is about in Uganda, identifying the potential businesses and investing in them and guiding them and holding their hands.
And at the same time guarding for the risk not to be so adverse. It's like something that Jamie Dimon talks about, the fortress balance sheet. That's what I think Julius Kaketo is trying to, the mold is bringing into lending, but also the profit is still coming in.
It's still intact. And now that brings me to something that's more crucial to Ugandans. I want to talk about microfinance. And we have been having such outstanding aspects like Pride Microfinance. And this has been seen from the grassroots of how money comes into our pockets and it lives in savings and everything. And I'm asking myself, why do they have to develop to Pride Bank? What are the advantages? What's the upside of standing as an institution as microfinance and now Pride Bank? What's the benefit of us? How do we benefit as a nation? How do we really make the most of the switch from microfinance to?
Well, I think for one, as they graduated to a tier 2, they are now able to provide for the different businesses, small businesses. They're able to access different financial products and services that are provided by the tier 2s.
And that's actually a very important thing, I think. Timbos, what do you think about the numbers pertaining to that shift? I'm aware that there's a requirement that banks really need to have for this kind of scale
elevation. So brief history on the Pride Bank that we know, it started in 1995 with 1 branch. Now there are 47 branches. It moved from tier 4 to tier 3. Now tier 3 and tier 2 banks are supposed to have a minimum capital of 25 billion Ugandan shillings. And now for 25 billion Ugandan shillings, in the number of like shares and equity by the shareholders,
Yes.
pertaining to even like assets and all that. Then even when a bank is elevating from tier 2 to tier 1, like how Post Bank did in 2021, as of then it needed about 125 billion. But then as we speak now, for if Pride Bank is to actually ever elevate into a tier 1 bank, now needs 150 billion Ugandan shillings as a minimum capital requirement.
Oh, that's really interesting. And if you ask me, there wouldn't be so many banks in Uganda.
Yeah, that would achieve that. Yes.
It's really a gasp for air sometimes. And upon that aspect of the 25 billion, I'd like to ask myself, how are the other banks faring as regards to lending and receiving back the money they have lent? How is it looking for the other banks?
As we talked about, equity is bleeding. There's also DTB. DTB is not doing so well. Then in the top 3 in Uganda, that's Stanbic, Centenary, and Absa. Absa is trailing behind a bit, but they're still doing well. For DTB, they have actually slipped a bit from how they used to be before, but then we still have hope, because with the case with the DTB is that they do not loan that much, so they do not receive much back. Yes. For equity, they loan a lot, but they've been losing a lot in the past 2 years. So that's the perspective that I see so far.
As we wind down, I just want us to answer this question for the people out there. What do you think could be the future for the banking sector in Uganda?
Well, I think in regards to the banks that are really in a bad place right now, for example, Equity has really gone down in terms of its income, and I think there are few solutions it can resort to, and maybe it can go back to its grassroots from where it started. At the point at which it started, it wasn't really badly off. So if it goes back to its days, back to the strategy they used in their glory days, they can actually become better. They can get out of whatever hole they have dug themselves into.
There's a kind of way that the central bank can actually come and aid this kind of state?
The central bank is actually doing well, because they're giving them mid-rate a fair central bank rate of 9.75%.
That's quite fair.
Yes, so and the inflation is being regulated. But in my opinion, the future for banking is, number one, most of Ugandans are unbanked. Yeah. Most people, it's a long process to start a bank. Maybe some 16-year-old high school student who cannot start a bank because they do not have an ID, a national ID. Exactly. There might be a tomato vendor in Chiboga district, and I cannot open up an account. I know that there's been the Momo thing, the mobile money from Airtel, MTN, and that's why most people have been resorting to. But then I believe, since the world is going digital, would reach a point where people can actually start making investments without actually having a physical account or card, like how Revolut is taking over the Europe, how Monzo is taking over those sides of Switzerland and all. So I think that since the world is going digital, we are going to move more on the fintech side.
Exactly.
Yes.
For people who do not have those, people might have money to save and they want to invest it in their banks, but they cannot start an account.
Yes.
That's basically it.
And there you have it. Thank you very much for joining us. We've just cracked and gotten a breath of what banking in Uganda looks like. Please join us next time. We shall be discussing more of these commercial and corporate issues here at CCP Digest. Thank you very much.